Hello again, everybody. I'm Scott Murray. We welcome you to yet another edition of Leadership America, creating champions of change through a culture of civility. This is all about introducing you to the really true champions of our world, those that have taken adversity and taken the opportunity to move forward in a positive, productive way. And we have a gentleman here today that is certainly one of those people, because I met him, I don't know how many years ago. All my years as a broadcaster, as a sports anchor, and going to the Super Bowl each and every year, I would always see Frank Supovitz from the National Football League. He was there making a difference in whatever way, shape, or form he might do. So, Frank, welcome. Great to have you along.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Scott.
Well, I tell you what, it's been a kind of a crazy couple of years, has it not? How has it affected your life, this pandemic and all that we've dealt with COVID-19 over the last couple of years?
Well, it has been crazy. The most important thing is that people stay safe, and that's a non-negotiable, right? That's the most important thing, that you can protect your health and your well-being. When it came to business, my role, I'm no longer with the N.F.L. I left there about almost 8 years ago.
Right.
And started my own live event production company, working on major sports events around the world, and particularly around the United States. And, that went away for a good long time. There was not a lot of work for people who were in this business. Everything went online. My specialty is on live events and producing those, presenting those, to large numbers of people. And although that's come back, for a good long time, that wasn't around. So I pivoted like everybody else did. I mean, I know that's a well-worn word at this particular time, but I thought it was really important at that juncture to start to educate the younger professionals, or the aspiring professionals that are coming into the sports, entertainment, and live event world. And so I took an adjunct professor's job at Adelphi University, in addition to continuing to consult and produce the events that were still being done. And I found that to be, a really important opportunity, to give back a little bit and start to shape the professional world to come.
Well, your point's extremely well taken, and certainly having things just kind of disappear. Our Murray Media company that I have with my son, a television production company and AV event company, and it did. It just stopped, and for like 9 months, it just totally disappeared, live appearances and what have you. So I can certainly identify with all that you've shared. What I'd like to do is just tell you, you kind of shared some of the things that you're doing, but I'd like to share with our listening audience and our viewing audience what it is that you've done and what you continue to be a part of, because it is most impressive. And when you talk about Frank, for more than 30 years now, award-winning event producer, has been at the helm of some of the world's most prestigious, widely viewed, and certainly well-attended sports and entertainment events. I mean, literally, from the Super Bowl on down. He founded Fast Traffic Events, which he just moments ago shared with us, in entertainment back in 2014 when he left the N.F.L. This is an event management and consulting company. It's based in New York. And Fast Traffic's recent clients include, listen up, Indianapolis 500. That's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right? New York City's South Street Seaport, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Major League Soccer, Australia's National Rugby League, among others. He's served as Senior Vice President, Events for the National Football League, overseeing the meteoric growth of the Super Bowl, the Pro Bowl, and the NFL Draft between 2005 and 2014. And prior to joining the NFL, you recall that he led the National Hockey League's Events and Entertainment Department from 92 to 2005. And together with the Oilers, he helped develop the N.H.L. Heritage Classic in 2003 and the first stadium-based outdoor pro hockey game, which we have been a part of here in Dallas. We love that. I remember going to the game a few years back with my son. It was above and beyond. It was the forerunner of the spectacular, successful N.H.L. Winter Classic that I'm referring to. Also served as Director of Special Events for Radio City Music Hall Productions. Past credits include the following: Presidential Bicentennial Procession in New York City, the 1990 Goodwill Games welcoming ceremonies in Seattle, Stanford University Centennial. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. He's the host of When Things Go Wrong. He has his own podcast, available on Spotify and Apple products, and also is the author of What to Do When Things Go Wrong, published back in 2019 by McGraw-Hill. So, indeed, a busy man. I think that pretty well gets it all, doesn't it, Frank?
It's enough. It does enough.
What do you enjoy most? I've just read that incredible bio of all the things that you've done over the last, 30 years. It's really most impressive. But I just wondered for you, when you go home at night and you sit there and you're all by yourself and you think to yourself, wow, what a day, what a day. Great to be a part of it. But what is really special, and what has been maybe one or two on your list of what you've gotten out of it?
Happily, I'm not alone. I've got a tremendous support mechanism with my lovely wife, Catherine. We've been married for 38 years, and that gives me the most pleasure. My family gives me the most pleasure, and it really grounds me. And having some balance between work and the rest of your life is really important. And it's very difficult to do in our business.
Right, right.
It was exceedingly difficult to do when you're on the road for National Hockey League, National
Right.
Football League, and there isn't a week that you're not on an airplane going somewhere. But in terms of what I do for a living, what really excites me is the opportunity to present events. I plan them from the ground up, in many cases. And Super Bowl, as you know, Scott, was an enormous logistical exercise. Um, it was an enormous platform to do great things in the community, and of course present an incredible event to the fans, both on television and live. I continue to do that, and depending on the client, I'm either producing the event or organizing the event or creating operations plans for those events. But what I really love to do is to produce those events, figure out the right messages behind those events and bring them to life, tell the stories behind those events and the athletes and the participants who are involved in them. And when it came to Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500, the incredible tradition of over 100 years of IndyCar racing, um, part of that story are the fans themselves,
Mhm.
and the families that have been coming for decades and decades and decades, and being able to tell stories about them too, because they're a big part of that really incredible and very special event. So being able to tease out the right kinds of stories for the right audiences are the kinds of things I really really enjoy the most.
You make a great point about certainly the Super Bowl and some of those major sporting events. But when you mention the Indy 500 and Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I don't like to use the word cult, but it's family. It's family. And a good friend of mine down here in Texas is Johnny Rutherford. He won the Indy 500 74, 76, and again in 1980. So a three-time winner. And yet to this day, he still, every single year, goes back to the Indy 500 in May and is a part of the whole month ceremonies and what goes on. And as you alluded to, it's almost like a family coming together. Doesn't matter how old you might be, you just continue to go back and bring new members of your family.
Yeah, it's a great brotherhood of man, if you will.
Yeah, it really is.
I was so impressed with, and of course I had watched it on television for many many years. I was so impressed with all of the backstories, and not just the drivers and the incredible feats that they perform, the incredible feats that their machines perform, right? 239 miles an hour, running around a 2.5 mile oval. But just the entire organic experience of being with what is normally 300,000 fans
Right.
on race day, right? It's the largest spectator facility in the world, and it's the most well attended sports event, annual sports event in the world, with more than 300,000. In 2016, the first year I worked on it, which was the 100th running, a lot of people came back who hadn't been there for many many years. So there were about 350,000 people in the building,
Hmm.
or in the facility, which was just a remarkable experience. Um, and one of the puzzles about pulling that together is, when you think about that number of people all in one place, they're not all watching it from the same vantage point, right? Some are literally a mile and a half away from where you're doing things. So being able to present something that is an experience that brings it to everyone, no matter where they are, on the track, is a real interesting puzzle that's fun to solve.
Well, I said you've been doing this for 30 plus years. You go back to the days in the 90s with the National Hockey League and what have you. I just wondered, how have things changed? What you did with the N.H.L., and obviously when you went to the N.F.L., that was a different sport and what have you, but the dynamics of what you were doing and what you were putting together, I'm sure, were just about the same. So I just wondered, as you look back, how is it different from what it was like when you first started to what we deal with now and what we try to create to make it so exciting and just so the fans can really feel that they're a part of it, and you have what you have at the Indy 500 and other big events like that?
What was really funny, Scott, back in 1992 when I first got involved with the National Hockey League, is that the facilities were not very uniform. Some of them were really very, very old. Some of them had no technology in terms of video scoreboards. We think about sports facilities now, and every one of them has jumbotrons, right? Giant video screens. The Montreal Forum didn't have that. The Le Colisée in Quebec City didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
There were facilities here. I think Old Boston Garden didn't have it either. So entertaining people was not as visually based as it is today. It was much more in the music that you presented, and the storytelling you did. Had to be really compromised by the fact that you couldn't have those visual elements. Now that's a standard, right? Everybody has it. And there's an enormous amount of care and very deliberate thought in terms of what the game experience feels like outside of the white lines or outside of the dasher boards and what you're delivering to people. So that's really important. The other thing that's really important that I think has changed over time is the recognition that the community needs to be involved on some level, because you do affect the quality of life of the community around you when you do these big events and you're bringing 18,000, 50,000, 100,000 people through one place. And how do you involve them in a way that is meaningful and relevant to them and gives them pride in what their community is hosting? So those are different vantage points, I believe, that are being embraced by the various leagues. The one thing I would say about the N.H.L., which was really the most fun, and it was that we had a lot of creative license, because we fought for every pair of eyeballs. And I believe that the N.H.L. is still doing that. It was not the number one sport in the United States. It was in Canada, or is in Canada, but wasn't in the United States and still is not. And it's a much more evangelical environment to work in, where you're saying, how do we get sticks in people's hands? How do we get them to care about this sport? How do we get them involved in this sport in a way that they're not just passive spectators? Because it is an incredible experience in arena, but if you were not in the arena, how do you bring that to people in a way that's meaningful to them? And that was a great deal of fun as well.
Let me ask you this. That was in 92 when you joined the NHL. I just wondered, that's almost 3 decades ago. So what comes to mind? I say to you, why you got involved with the NHL. Were you from Canada? Do you have relatives in Canada? My dad was born in Nova Scotia, so I had a hockey stick before I had a baseball bat, even though I grew up in the United States, kind of have a dual citizenship. But my point is this, as an American, I knew baseball and football and basketball, and that's what I played. I didn't play a lot of hockey, although my dad, when it got cold and I was born up north, it was crazy. So I just wondered, how about you, where that all came from?
I'm not Canadian.
Okay.
I may have honorary Canadian status given the amount of time I've spent in Canada, particularly in those years. But no, I'm from New York and from Queens, actually. So
Well, I'm from Rochester, not that far away.
yeah, I am of the ilk of the original six, hockey teams, one of which was the New York Rangers.
Right.
And I watched hockey because I thought it was an incredible entertainment experience, even in those days, in black and white, on television. And I just thought it was an incredibly exciting sport. And watch the games. And I'll tell you, again, it was more of an entertainment experience than a pure sports experience, which today people, sports, going to a sports event is no longer an impulse purchase.
Okay.
It's really expensive. In those days, it was an impulse purchase. Where do you want to go on Friday night? Oh, let's go to a basketball game, or let's go to a baseball game, or let's go to a hockey game. Now it's really hard to do that, right?
Right.
So I never understood at the time why it always seemed like the New York Rangers were playing the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Montreal Canadiens, or the other original six teams,
right,
in Chicago, Detroit, Boston.
Chicago, and yeah.
And there were only six teams. I didn't know that. But I really enjoyed it. And then when the Islanders were born, outside in Nassau County, where I actually live now, I started following the Islanders, and of course they were successful very, very early,
right,
in their expansion years in the early '80s. So it was just an exciting entertainment experience. And then when I did have the opportunity to go to the Garden or to go to Nassau Coliseum, I just had a blast when I was there. I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to move out of pure entertainment events, which is what I did at Radio City, to go into sports at a time when sports entertainment was something new. Right? Everything was really, what happened inside the dasher boards and an organist. And
That's
that
right.
was kind of your entertainment package.
Absolutely.
Right? And when the leagues began to embark on this new journey of what do you do with entertainment on any given night, because I had already worked on a Super Bowl halftime back in 1988 when I was still at Radio City. I was the associate producer for that show. That was an entertainment thing,
right,
that lived inside of a game, but it was still entertainment. What do you do any given Sunday at an N.F.L. game? What do you do, 2 or 3 times a week inside Nassau Coliseum, Madison Square Garden, things like that. And it was a great opportunity to flex my muscles a little bit on the entertainment side and bring some of that, or at least accelerate the introduction of that into the sports world at a time when it was kind of an afterthought.
Right. Totally understand. Well, you made note of family, just in getting the fans involved, letting communities be involved with what might be taking place. So maybe that's a good segue to go into another way that, or another opportunity that we had to be together was Taste of the NFL, which is the big event the night before the Super Bowl game, that Saturday night on the eve of the game. There might be up to 5,000 people in a convention center in whatever city is hosting the game, and people come from whatever it might have been from the two teams that are involved, from those cities and others that are involved. But I remember going in Minnesota in 1992. I was always looking, as a broadcaster, as a sports anchor, I was always looking for a little story that was a little different than just the game itself. And certainly I always looked for things that were philanthropic, that made a difference in the lives of those that needed it most, basically. And so I was introduced to Wayne Kostrowski in '92 when the Minnesota Vikings, I was told at the time, they didn't think they'd ever have another Super Bowl again. It was, a cold weather city, and they'd been in Detroit about 10 years prior, and that was remember that one? That was crazy. Oh my, yeah, that's right. And that was I was just a punk kid just in broadcasting at that time. And I remember being at that game, and people were dropping their typewriters. This is before computers, in the snow, and it was icy, and it was just a mess. They said, "Oh, we're never coming to a cold weather city again for a Super Bowl. This is crazy." So Minnesota created, Wayne was on the the event, the host committee, and they created this Taste of the NFL. So it would benefit the food banks in the 32 NFL cities. Well, you became certainly very involved in that on behalf of the NFL. And I just wondered, those events like that, it just kind of, its tenure has just come to an end, but after 29 years, a great legacy for sure. Would you not agree? And I thought was a real positive for the NFL as well.
It absolutely, it's funny. My first day of work at the NFL was in Jacksonville. Before Super Bowl 39, I arrived about a week before the game, and Wayne was waiting for me in the lobby of the hotel as I checked in,
right,
and grabbed me right away and said, you have time for a cup of coffee? And I was like, sure. I have no idea who Wayne is and what he's all about, and I'm just getting my feet damp, not even wet.
Right.
In Jacksonville, and we had a 20 minutes together, 30 minutes together, and I was so incredibly impressed with his passion for what Taste of the NFL was all about, which, as you suggested and said, was to help feed the hungry. And what an incredible opportunity that was to get involved with something like that. I felt that it was definitely something that the Super Bowl could help achieve. Obviously, it's not a long-lasting effect, but it has an acute effect on what you can do in a market when the Super Bowl comes to town. There is so much partying and so much celebration, and obviously a lot of food and drink gets consumed by people who can afford to do that. But there's a lot of people who can't, and they live in that community too. And what better way can you than embracing that challenge? And Taste of the NFL, when it went to other cities, generated a wide range of impacts. But in Fort Worth, for example, Super Bowl 45,
right,
it generated more than $1 million that one night, and it's a tremendous event. Just as an event, it's great.
Right.
Having 32 team food stations with 32 great chefs from around the country preparing tasting portions of some of the dishes that they're famous for, along with a wine pairing from Gallo Wineries, thanks to Gina Gallo, and an autograph opportunity at each of those stations with an alumnus of that team. You take a trip around the league, and in taste, in sight, in smell, and it is such a great event, and has been such a great event for nearly 3 decades. And when I left the NFL, I felt it was important to continue to help in that effort, and stayed on the board of the charity.
Right.
And I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, Wayne, as I said, I met from the get-go. He asked me when it came to Dallas, when the game came to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And as you said, it was above and beyond the $1 million that they raised at Fort Worth. And he said, hey, would you, I saw your book, your first book you'd written, Whatever It Takes, Life Lessons Learned Through Sports Legends. Would you tell our story? And so I wrote a book for him, Bring Out the Best. And then he asked me if I would MC it, and so I MC'd it the last 10 years, and it was a joy. Usually with Miss America, she was always there, and we'd kind of do it tandemly. But I was really impressed the way everybody came together. Didn't matter whether you were a chef or a football great, a Hall of Famer, whatever. Everybody had one passion in mind, and that was to make a difference in the lives of those that need it most. And I think, Frank, you might know this better than I, but I think they like over the 29 years, 220 million meals or something like that. And when you think that 1 out of every 4 children in America, not around the world, but in America, 1 out of every 4 children goes to bed hungry every single night. Boy, talk about a difference maker. So it really was.
Absolutely. And it was, just a remarkable experience. I remember, I tried to get to Taste of the NFL. When I ran the Super Bowl, it was very difficult for me to get to everything that was going on. And some years I couldn't. But if I could, I went. And certainly in years when I had already left the NFL, I had gone back to several of them. And what was remarkable were the people that I would see from clubs, from NFL clubs, people that I would see from the Alumni Association, people I would see from the media, who made it a point to go every year. Number one, because it did have a great impact on the community. Number two, it was just a fun night. I mean, it was just a great experience all the way around.
No, absolutely. Well, I tell you what, as we head down the home stretch, let me ask you this, Frank, just a couple of questions before we wrap things up. The name of this program, as I said, is Leadership America. It's creating champions of change through a culture of civility. And you certainly have done that, be it courage, commitment, character, compassion, and just not confrontation, but just having great conversations with whoever it might be that you're out there. And you just do it in such a positive, productive way. It's you have great purpose in what you do every single day. And that's what I've admired about you from afar for a number of years. So I just wondered, as we close up, is there a message and I refer to you as a champion with you. I read your bio at the beginning to everybody that, is watching. So they certainly understand where you've been and what you've done. But I just wondered, are there any things that come to mind now that you've, you kind of have your own thing that you're doing, but in this crazy world that we're all a part of right now as we move forward, what it is I guess just the important things that we all as human beings need to stay focused on, to make a difference if we have the opportunity to be passionate, to have that purpose in our life, to really be a difference maker. And you have a chance to do that every single day with all the events you're involved with. I just wondered, are there one or two things, closing thoughts and message that you might share with all our audience as to what it is to really be that great champion and do it with civility, which is something that, people are not nearly as kind, courteous, and respectful as they used to be in our world, unfortunately. So I just wondered what comes to mind for you. You're out there in the public every single day.
First of all, thank you for such kind comments. I'm not sure I live up to all of that.
Oh, you do. Yeah.
I appreciate all the thought. Be authentic, be genuine. Bring to life the things that are important to you. And I think that's enormously important, not just in your work, but and in your life, but when things are going well. But when things don't go well, that authenticity is going to be really important, and your own brand is going to be affected by not the terrible things that may happen to you or the challenges that may happen to you, but they're really defined by how you deal with those things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you're authentic in your normal life and you're genuine in your normal life, when things go south on you, that authenticity will help you, given that you're still going to have to face the critics, and you're still going to have to solve the problems, and you're still going to have to rebuild your brand, and you're going to have to do all of those things. But if you've been authentic all along, it's easier to get those bridges rebuilt.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Well, plans for 2022? Anything on the horizon you can share with us, or?
Yeah, I'm excited I'm excited that events have come back. They started to come back in 2021. We were at the Indy 500 and produced the pre-race show for that. We had 135,000 people there, which is 40% of capacity. And it was done, the Speedway purposely held back on a lot of ticket sales, and they only sold 135,000 tickets. Think about that, only
unbelievable.
135,000. Yeah. I'm hoping people will be back, this May, for the 106th running. We'll be back for that. Working on next year's Major League Baseball draft. That was great fun this past summer. We did the first publicly accessible, fan accessible draft with Major League Baseball this past summer. First one since I think 2008, when it was down at Wide World of Sports.
Okay, right.
So we've got that going on, and we've got some really important work that we're doing with Woolman Rink up in Central Park in New York, where we're introducing some diversity, equity, and inclusion programming to the rink's purpose as a recreational facility. So there's a great deal of heart and caring behind that, getting the entire community and all of the communities of New York to look at Woolman Rink as a place not only to enjoy recreation, but also to feel welcome. And that's, enormously important too. So I'm looking forward to all of those things.
Well, good for you. Well, I tell you what, you're a busy man, and I can't thank you enough for stopping by. Your friendship means the world, and just all that you continue to do for so many. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Enjoy the upcoming holidays at the end of the year, and as we, get ready for the brand new year, 2022, as you said, hopefully some great things on the horizon as we get back to normalcy. Wouldn't that be special in our world?
It would be. All the best to you, Scott, to your family, and to all your listeners and viewers.
Thank you very much. Frank Supovitz, one of the real difference makers in our world. We thank you much. Stay safe, my friend. Stay well. And that's it for this edition of Leadership America. Till next time, you stay safe. Be well. I'm Scott Murray. Make a difference. That is key.